church. The youth program kicks off today. They had Soul Cafe this morning, and they have a picnic gathering tonight under the leadership of the Reverend Greg Lawton, whom we're very happy to have joined us on our staff. So that's where we are with youth. And then with the other thing I was asked to talk about is the contemporary worship service. It's done really well this summer. We were down to low teens maybe for attendance, and we've been more like between 30 and 40 most of the summer. So we're still ironing out what does contemporary mean, and figuring out what's the best worship flow, and trying to get more people to be aware that the service is happening. We're learning about the impact of football on attendance now that we're downtown instead of out on the northeast corner. But it's going well, so I feel good about the worship offerings we have. And that's my 5 minutes, so I'm going to stop. And who comes after me? Who's up? Up, Jonathan. You're up. Okay. Grab the schedule.
Good morning, other configuration of church. So one of the things that hums underneath how we do all of church is our connection to Ann Arbor and to Washtenaw County and to the ways in which we recognize the living out of things like our social principles and things like our commitments that this church has been connected to for so long. So Justice League is if you don't know that it exists, it exists. And it is our body that functions sort of as the mission council of this church. They oversee our 12 ongoing missions. So when you hear about things in worship services that they're called moments of mission. If you hear something from Habitat for Humanity, or if you hear something from Love Thy Neighbor, or if you hear something about the upcoming crop walk, the crop walk is upcoming. If you didn't know about it, it's October 5th, and I'll get into that in a second. But for all of those missions, those fall under the larger umbrella of the Justice League. If you ever have an idea that you're like, hey, the church should do that thing, whatever that mission thing is, the Justice League is your go-to people. One of the chairs is Julie Rush, and where's the other? So Melanie, wherever Melanie may exist in the world, Melanie Snook. Those are your two co-chairs. I am the staff liaison and the overseeing pastor. So if you have an idea and you want to see if the church can get involved with that, then that is one of the three of us. And those 12 missions rotate through the year in terms of their sort of high points of what they're doing. And then also we do some things that are sort of one-offs. So this was our second year this year of doing the summer service days. We expanded from just Sunday to Sunday and Saturday. We had 7 different sites, and we had about 85 people show up over the course of the 2 days to be able to be part of not necessarily going to worship here, but going to worship by doing the work of being involved with the community. And most of the organizations that we worked with were repeats from last year. They were thrilled to have some willing and able volunteers for a couple of hours at a time. I know that there were some folks who moved books around. I know there were some folks who did some weeding. I know there were some folks who helped clean up the sanctuary here at the church. There were some folks who wrote cards for trans youth who are going into some format of transition for themselves. It was a whole bunch of different sorts of things, and I'm very glad to have seen so many people come out to be part of that. And then there were a couple of things for people who were not in town but who wanted to be part of this in some way. There were some works that they could take home or they could do at whatever time. And so we had probably about 10 or 15 people who had opted into doing that, which was great. And hopefully I had several people ask if this is going to be an annual thing. That's the hope. That for one weekend a summer, we will say that this church deliberately goes out into the community and says we are part of this. One of the other things that happens in the summer is Habitat for Humanity's work, and this year we hit our $10,000 pledge for 5 days of work, which is phenomenal. Many shouts out to Mark Wickham and the work that he has done in terms of being able to corral every piece of that. And there have been some photos that have gone through various pieces of social media. If you haven't seen them, they'll be coming out in a Sharing the Good News at some point. But we do celebrate that ongoing partnership that this church has been connected to for years upon years upon years, especially in the current climate when there are so many ways that various nonprofits are being defunded. And one of the other things that comes out of summer is Pride, which is delightful. This year we had a Pride booth here for the Ann Arbor Pride again, and we had about 10 people who signed up to be part of the booth throughout the day, which was fantastic. And there were all sorts of characters, as there always are. There were all sorts of great conversations that happened. When I go to Pride, I wear my clerical collar, which you may not have ever seen either of us in, but we do have them. And I always wear my clerical collar, and it is, I cannot understate to you how many people stop me to say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up as the church. It matters, y'all. It matters so much, especially right now. So it is a good and wonderful thing that this church continues to commit to those spaces loudly, vociferously, repeatedly, because so much of the church doesn't. So coming up, then, there's so many other things that have happened over the course of the summer, but coming up we have the Crop Walk. This church has not hosted in 20 plus years, and we are hosting this year, which is phenomenal, and also requires a lot of people. So if you have not already been sort of poked in the side to sign up for something, consider that this. And October 5th, if you want to walk, if you want to be part of the people who guide people to do things, if you want to be part of helping, we're working with Fed Up food trucks for the food for this. And Lynn, so I'm looking right at Lynn, who has all of the answers. So if you have questions, find her. Or email me for those who are online. And just to be part of this wonderful interdenominational, interreligious moment when we say that there is still a real need for those who are in some way food insecure, for those who get pushed out of the narrative over and over again, and for this church to show up again, to show up and be in the spaces that say this is a form of injustice, this is a form of evil, and we will react to that. We will be part of all of the work that goes into being with our neighbors, into being in community together. There is always more going on in terms of the mission of this church, the missions, plural, of this church. And I do encourage you to tap into what's going on with the Justice League. If you haven't, just simply ask us what's happening. We have so many things to tell you. And if you want to be part of any one of those 12 missions, they would be happy to have you, to be able to put you to work using the gifts that God has given you. And so that's sort of what's happening outside. There is, of course, all of the stuff that's always happening inside the building. And for that, we welcome the facilities folks to chat about how we are doing here in the building.
For those of you that can't see this, we actually have a very strict time limit here. I'm now a minute behind, so I've got to cut it short. So, for those of you that don't know, I'm John Kazor. I'm one of the lay leaders here with Amy Bridges, and we are working on reimagining our facilities to understand what we can do, how we can be more a part of the community and have the community more a part of us. Ann's already talked about this space. She will get up and talk a little bit more about some of the other things trustees are working on, and then we will have a new member of the group, Jeff Mortimer, talk to us about some of the work that we're doing to invite people and organizations in to use the space as part of our efforts to A, be involved with the community, and B, perhaps get some revenue from that. So we're trying to figure out how to use the spaces that we have. So where we are right now, as we've gone through this process, and I've been working on this for about 3 years now, there's lots of excitement about ideas and what could we do and what might this be and the challenges of how do we overcome all these obstacles. Right now we are in the thick of the mundane. So we are dealing with a legal agreement with Wesley. That's the biggest thing that's happening right now. We're dealing with title work. We're dealing with all of the easements and environmental issues that we have to undertake if we're going to do something with this property. The biggest question that is the struggle is, and it's not a struggle, it's really just trying to make sure we get it right. Wesley and the church have shared this space for almost 100 years. And as we've gone back and looked at the historical documents, tried to figure out how do we move forward, there's a lot to sort out. There's some missing information. We were trying to figure out how will we work together in the future. We know that no developer that looks at this site, the combined church and Wesley properties, wants to deal with two entities. And they don't want to deal with murkiness. They want clarity, and we as organizations also want clarity. So we are working with Bodman attorneys they've drafted an agreement. We've got lots of questions about it. Wesley's going to be meeting with their board next week to review that document, and then we're going to go back to the attorneys with some questions and clarification, and let's sort this out. Make sure we really know with ultimate clarity how we as the two organizations will and could work together. It doesn't bind us to do anything, it just clarifies the last agreement that we wrote, which was 85 plus years ago, and make sure that everything's clear. So even if we don't move forward with a redevelopment, we at least have a better understanding of how these two organizations share this property that we're on and work together. The historical documents, like I said, there's still some things we're trying to work out. We got most of it sorted out. We are working with the conference, just keeping them in touch. And as questions come up about Book of Discipline questions, about land deeds and whatnot, the conference is involved in those questions. We're also monitoring what's going on with other developments. Most of you have probably heard the Klein lot development over on Ashley. That's one thing that we're paying attention to, just to see what is the market these days for a large development. That lot is similar size to what we're looking at. So just trying to understand what that looks like, and also paying attention to some of the news stories that are coming out about student housing and rental rates and what's affordable and all of that, so that we can understand market changes and whatnot, not because we're going to develop, but because we're going to be getting proposals at some point from developers, and we want to make sure whatever is being proposed is viable. And because we want the health of the church and the Wesley Foundation to succeed, not suffer if we go into a partnership. So that's where we're at on that. I will pass it over to Ann.
This is the very first I've ever heard about us thinking about getting rid of this whole facility, selling it to a developer. I know Doug, when he was here, had all these crazy ideas of putting a high-rise in and putting the church at the top and all that craziness. But this is the first I've ever heard about taking this venerable old structure that somebody in 1939, several hundred of them, put their heart and soul into building this thing, and it's a structure that you couldn't reproduce today.
And that's true. And I will give immense credit to our trustees over the many decades who have maintained this property. There are many buildings of this age that you can easily say, get rid of it, because it's just not maintained. We are not, first of all, we're not looking at selling, because that changes the dynamic within the Book of Discipline and whatnot. We're looking at other options. And B, we are looking at multiple constellations of the property in terms of where things could be built. Preserving this entire structure, preserving part of the structure, building around, building on one corner. All of those things are up in the air. And as we go through this process, we need to define what it is that we want to preserve as a church and Wesley, and what we're willing to develop. And that question hasn't been answered yet. We have talked about just about every constellation that we can imagine. So we'll keep talking about that to figure it out. But I'm going to ask that we hold questions until the end, and then we'll answer questions once we get there. We'll make sure we have time for everybody to speak. Ann?
All right, so the first order of business, the Greenwood sale proceeds. So we went through that sale last year, and it was a little over $2 million, and we used those proceeds to help renovate this space here. So that was one use of it. The other was to pay off our mortgage, so we do not, and that mortgage was from renovation that we had done, in the early 2000s, 2000 to 2005. So we've been benefiting from that over the years, but now we've paid off that mortgage. And now we have, a sum of money that we will carefully manage and use. We are not randomly spending it on things. We'll work with Leadership Council, Finance, and trustees to decide on what the future projects would be to reuse the rest of that money. But it can't be used for operating expenses, just capital. Oh, gosh, I'm not good at mental math. I think it was noted in the email that. $1,730,17. So we have over $1 million still. So, and we're trying to be very, good stewards of that money, because we benefited from Greenwood for all those years, and we want to preserve that memory of how we experience that and celebrate that. So, which is why we enjoy this contemporary worship here now as well. I gave you a preview a little bit before. I was talking a little bit about the Greenwood Sanctuary. So it's complete now. It has certificate of occupancy. It's been being used for worship. So we hope that it continues to have multiple future uses. Memorial service. It has a beautiful view of the memorial garden. So having the reception up here afterwards would be very apt. But also I think we've hosted a dance in here already. It's nice to have multiple weddings, of course, baptisms. We have the nice baptism. So and different functions over the years. So we do have a proposal from our AV team, and I'll shout out to the gentleman at the back of the room again. They've been working with Simone Sounds Incorporated to do, these would be for new video projection and AV updates in the sanctuary, and that's to come. We've reviewed it, and I think we still need a final proposal, but we'll take that to Leadership Council, and that would be something that we might use some of the Greenwood money proceeds for. And so I've shortened the time limit because I did mine but I'll answer any questions at the end if anyone has anything. Thank you.
All right, so we're right on time, so I'm going to try and keep us there. My name is Jeff Mortimer, as John mentioned, and I'm part of the Building Use Committee. During our last all-church meeting, we actually mentioned this idea. And Todd and I have been meeting for the last couple months weekly to really dive into this and really explore it. So we've stood up this building use committee, and what we're looking to do is how do we bring the community into our church more? We have a beautiful space here. How do we use it and bring the community in? So that can be from any of the ideas that you as a congregation have. We want to start gathering those and really understanding what are those things that we could use this space for. So one of my favorite things as we've been exploring how we're using this space is we do the Tuesdays together, and I've learned about Why Not Pie, which Janice Leach uses the kitchen during the week and helps bring that local food to our community and really has helped build that. If we go to the next slide, we actually have a picture of the Tuesdays together. You'll see me getting some food there at the delicious table and my kids, and just the wonderful time we have together. Again, using the space that we have to bring our community in, bring us together as a church. We use this space a lot on Sundays. We don't use it a lot during the week. We have lots of classrooms that are open. We have this newly renovated space here that we can use more. So really, we want your ideas on how we can use this space. So my ask is that you reach out to myself, Todd, or Kim Garver with any of the ideas on how we can use the space, bring the community in, and that could involve some of the redevelopment as well. How do we use maybe some of those capital proceeds, and maybe we do some updates to the space to use it in different ways. But we have all sorts of space here. Let's use it and bring the community in. All right. Good.
I'll be quick as well. I'm Kim Garver, one of the co-chairs of the Leadership Committee with Rick Miller back there. A couple of updates. We have finished our 18-month process of rebranding to be a little more focused in the traditional way with mission, vision, values. We continue to have a welcoming statement. We have had multiple church meetings. We've listened to your input, the staff's input. So that is now complete. You'll notice that on all of our digital media, on our website, on our brochures, it's not entirely updated, but it's close. So you'll notice some of that rebranding that we appreciate you have contributed to. So thank you. The other thing that's happening new this fall is our communication and marketing team led by Jessica Allison, who is just wonderful, along with the help from our wonderful ministers, is to create our first fall inaugural nonprofit report. And this will be done in time for the stewardship campaign. We want this to be not only an internal celebration for what we've done, but also to live on our website as a way to market to the world about what we've done. Several local churches have annual reports. We've got great examples from churches around us, so we're really excited about making this a yearly tradition as well. And then, of course, you know I'm going to do a shameless plug for Church Center. So how many of you have your phones on you today? Raise them up. Okay, almost everybody. How many of you have Church Center app on it? Yay, we're making progress. Okay, so if you don't and you would like to, I'll be available after the meeting today and next weekend as well at the All Church. I'll bring my laptop. So if you're not there, you can sign up. It's great. We've got our online directory. You can update your information live. You can update it on your kids, on yourself. We can sign into church. You don't have to use the pew pads. You don't have to use the QR code. You just go to the little sign up icon at the bottom. Boom, one click. You're checked in. It helps our secretarial staff and our administrative do less work on the back end. It's more accurate. It keeps track of when you actually are in versus just a head count. And then we have the sign up icon at the bottom where I believe Wendy and Jessica have done such a great job putting all of our events, and Rachel and Logan. So if you hit the sign up button, you can see all that is happening, including today's meeting, next week's meeting. Some of those do require registrations, but many do not. They have wonderful graphics and they'll keep you in the loop. So if you do not have it, please come and be part of the app and be more involved with the community through the app in an easier way. Thank you.
Finance bros. All right, Ted, we've got 4 minutes. 4 minutes. So my name is John Wilson. Going to talk about the last fiscal year, which worked out pretty well. We were a little worried as we headed into the last couple months, but you all responded beautifully. We had very good giving. And so we ended up with total income of $1.4 million and a very small deficit of $9,000. And that's really in large part because of what the congregation did in the last few months of the year to get us back in order. So thank you all very much for your giving. Ted, you want to take up this year?
Sure. This year, well, I was going to say a few things, but they've already been said, so I'll save an extra minute or two. I do want to remind everyone, the sale of the Greenwood property that Ann already went over. Like I said, we have about $1.7 million that we have not used. And right now that's invested, so it's earning a nice rate of return for the church as opposed to just sitting there idle. I just finished everything year to date, right, this year. Right now we have about we're actually in a surplus coming out of summer. Oh, I'm sorry. Summer coming out, we have a surplus of $6,500, which coming out of August for a church, it's pretty good.
Can you,
So-
can you go to the next slide, please?
Yeah. Right, so the current budget for this year was $1,170,000. And right now we are planning on using some funds from the trust to do that. Obviously, if we don't have to, we won't. So one thing, as we talked about, we had a very strong finish, and we got to kind of keep the good news coming, gang, right? So, right. So I just encourage you to continue your generosity with the church, and thank you for doing so.
That's it.
Yeah, and the other thing, I think Ann touched on that, anything that is pulled out of the proceeds from the Greenwood sale, I just want to reemphasize, that has to be, number one, in accordance with the discipline, because there's rules about that, and number two, we have all agreed that that will be brought up in Leadership Council and approved by the Leadership Council before the funds are dispersed. So I just wanted to emphasize that, number one, we have a control there to make sure that they are used properly, which is pretty important. And I was going to say one other thing. What else?
I think that's it.
That's it, okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, before we kind of talk a little bit more about how all of you can be involved, we did want to take questions that you have written on your cards. So John and I and Kim can grab those very quickly. We will ask for some questions from you as a group. I will stand here and repeat your questions so that the questions can be heard and so that we make sure that they are part of what happens with the live stream. And I'm going to grab a mic from Dan so we can do that mobily. So.
Here, now we're working.
Testing. Yeah, this one's working.
All right. First question is for John Abba. So we need to grab, you either need to come here or we need to grab you a mic. Can you tell us what the 12 missions of the Justice League are? Or, hang on, this was not supposed to be a test. I think maybe the better question, let me translate the question. How do we find out what the missions of the Justice League are so that we can be involved with the missions that speak to us as part of our baptism vows and as we resist evil by supporting our Justice League's missions?
I appreciate your reframing more than you know. So yes, if you go to our website, FUMC-A2.org, there is in the slew of carrots up at the top, serve. If you have that drop-down menu, the 12 missions are put into those particular categories. There's food insecurity, housing and clothing, advocacy, caring for each other, and administrative committees. Administrative committees are their own beast, but the 12 ministries are under those particular categories. So if you're interested, say, in housing and clothing, and you go to that, then you have Alpha House, you have Habitat for Humanity, and you have our partnership with House by the Side of the Road. So depending on which particular piece, I invite you to go spelunking in that particular menu and to find out how all of those are put together. Each of them also has a contact person, so that is the person who runs that particular ministry or is the point person for that. So you can go ahead and send them an email and say, hey, this is really cool, how can I be involved?
Take the mic. The next question is about outreach in our community. How are we reaching out? What is happening with our communications? What is happening with our other outreach into our community, including our student life with University of Michigan right across the street, and even things like our new neighbors across the street. So I'm going to ask Jennifer to maybe frame what that outreach looks like, and then maybe Tim or Amy Kennedy want to talk more specifically about other kinds of outreach that we have into our community.
Absolutely. So with things like our connection point to University of Michigan, I am going to make Tim do most of the conversation about that because in the United Methodist Church, the way that we are structured, we have a separate arm called the Wesley Foundation, and they are sort of the on-ramp, the inroad, the connection point for universities all over the country, not just here in Ann Arbor. But so Tim will speak to that as sort of the Methodist connection there. As far as the neighborhood itself, yes, Legacy is finally done. There are trumpets in heaven, and we are still sort of doing some brainstorming about what that will look like. Wendy Everett, who is somewhere, has been thinking about how best we can connect to them. Some of that is also recognizing the rules and regulations of the buildings around us, that technically we are a solicitor if we just sort of wander in and put in a lot of paperwork and tell people. So we're trying to be mindful of the privacy of the residents of those particular units, as well as recognizing that the best neighborly ways isn't necessarily, hey, hi, you're new, you should come hang out with us all of the time, which is a little overwhelming, especially for introverts. So we are working on, among the staff, we're having a couple of conversations about how we can do that. One of the things is the Reconnect Sunday next week, that is going to be very visible. We're going to be very clear about inviting the folks around us to come eat, hang out with us. It's a low stakes involvement thing. Also, Crop Walk will be very visible when it's on our block. And there's going to be a trunk or treat that's happening in October. And that, again, will be one of those things that you don't necessarily have to come into the building, which is very scary to a lot of people, but that you can sort of come and be lost among the crowd. As far as other outreach, one of the things that is true is that we recognize that no one church is ever going to fix the world, and if we try, we will fold. So some of that is the recognition that we work with the other churches here in Ann Arbor. We have a pretty steady coalition of about 7 or 8 of us across 5 different denominations that we get together to do various services, worship services. We get together to do some service work. I'm building a connection with Jim Toy Community Center, and Greg, who is our new youth director, is really excited to toss youth at various to invite youth to various ways of being in service. That's definitely better language. But to at all levels recognize that service can be big, service can be small, service can be a one-time sort of thing, and outreach doesn't have to be, and then we make everybody come back to worship with us, because that's just not the thing that a lot of people are very interested in at the moment. But that doesn't mean that we aren't still connected to the community. So, Tim, how are we connected to the community?
Well, we spoke of the legacy right across the street. Amy and I went across the street to speak to the people at the desk to see how we could present our information to them. They don't have a bulletin board. They don't, of course, allow you to go and post things on their doors. But they are talking about the possibility of getting a brochure stand where we could leave some information. There's also some initial, very preliminary conversation about maybe leaving snacks for them, but we have not heard back from them yet because they've been just trying to get people moved in. And so once things settle down a little bit, one of us or both of us will go pay another visit and see how we can more fully welcome our neighbors there. There was also a question about how do we find the work of collaboration going between the Wesley and the church. We've been meeting quite regularly with the redevelopment team to keep the conversation going, and as Kim would say, moving at, faster than the speed of church. If you know, you know. And so it's just trying to get all of our things lined up so that then we can begin more of the detailed work of what the development will look like. On the Wesley side of things, we're also collecting some data from students about what they see as intentional spiritual living community looking like for the Wesley part, what they see as important parts of worship, and we see students in Sunday morning worship as well as the Wesley worship. We've participated along with the church and collaborated on classes like on Tuesdays Together. I helped to lead a session for that. And so we're looking constantly at ways in which we can work together on these things. And I feel like we have a really strong partnership and that the conversations are going well. I know that historically there have been, bumps in the road, but I think right now we are excited about how things are now, but even more excited about where things are leading. I don't know if that answered your question entirely, but we also did 25 orientation sessions over the summer, meeting the new students as they come in, as well as the Rackham Resource Fair. And then we've done Festa Fall, Festa Faith, Pride Outside. So there have been so many tables that we have sat behind. And we have met so many people, and it's wonderful because they come and they ask great questions. They're looking for information about the church, about the ministry options around the area, and it's great to have that presence to be able to answer those questions.
I cannot say enough about how much thank you. I cannot say enough about how much I appreciate working with Tim and the real joy that I feel in the relationship between the two organizations at this point. It's a wonderful, healing, just great experience to be working together.
As we finish up this question about our connection to the community and our outreach, I think this is a good time for us to turn this back to all of us and talk about how we can be involved. Obviously being welcoming to people that you do know or that you don't know. And I think that sometimes being welcoming is merely having a conversation rather than listing the things that are happening this week. Or maybe sharing the thing that you are going to this week and inviting someone to come along. Obviously inviting your friends to join you. We all have friends that we don't see here at church as often as we used to, and I think it's a lovely opportunity as we see so many things happening, including next week's Community Reconnect. That is a great opportunity to reach out to somebody and say, the weather's going to be nice. Are you going, I'm going to the Reconnect. Will you join me? So being able to invite folks to come to specific events. I do think that for many people who feel like they have a long time connection to this community and this building, but are not aware that this space has been redeveloped and that we have a Saturday evening service here, I think that you could very easily reach out to someone and say, I haven't been to the 5 o'clock Saturday service since it moved to the new Greenwood Sanctuary. I'm going to go check it out. Would you like to come with me? So lots of ways that you can invite people to join you. And then obviously when you are here, any opportunity that you can create to speak to others, to continue to build that community here in our church home. That community becomes really evident when other people walk by the building and see people having conversations outside. It becomes evident when people join us for the very first time and see that we enjoy one another and that we do turn to speak to them and welcome them into that joy and that community that we have. All right, next question that I have is a really good question. I love this. Oh, Amy.
Can I insert myself to
Amy,
tell more
yes.
collaboration?
Yes.
So just to let you know, we hosted through Literati, Rob and Wall Kilmer here just a few nights ago, a community event that brought a lot of people who don't usually come into our sanctuary here on a Thursday night. So we're excited that happened. I want to let you all know in the past week, I've met 2 families who have someone at the hospital who is sick and one is from that person's pastor in Grand Rapids who called, and another one was a member of our church today said, I met this person, and could you possibly visit their family this week? So just so you know that people see us as a source of comfort when they're going through something at the hospital. I also want to let you know that visitation team has had 4 people express interest in joining that team because somebody is reading the bulletin highlights. I'm so excited to say. And that is a way we are connected with the community, visiting people who are either homebound or not here for some reason. Just this weekend, I heard about someone who's live streaming because she can hear better than she can when she sits in the sanctuary. So I'm very excited to hear about the AV improvements that maybe she could come back to church and hear better. And I also want to let you know that Stephen Ministry continues. To me, it's like a superpower in the world if we can listen compassionately to people during this time. And we do have Stephen ministers who are doing that, and we will start training in January with First Pres to train some new Stephen ministers. And so I'm just letting you all know that because I would love it if you'd let me know if you'd like to train. It's a 6-month commitment to train, and it'll help you be a better listener in other parts of your life, not just if you're assigned care receiver. So those are some of the ways we're collaborating.
Those are wonderful. Loved hearing about the collaboration with Literati because that's a great example of the work that Jeff's building use team is doing. There are at least 3 concerts on the calendar, one for the end of this month and 2 later in the academic calendar year, for groups that are going to come into our spaces and use that to do their musical recitals. We think we're going to see more recitals this year as well. So again, these are building use opportunities. Keep thinking of other ways that you can reach out into the community to bring them into this space. All right, Anne, I think this one is for you. So I loved that Amy also just talked about the fact that, AV improvements in our sanctuary, in our main sanctuary, will hopefully help some of those who are having some hearing impairment. We also have a question about visual impairment, that the screens that have been in the sanctuary for a long time are a little bit smaller, and they can be very hard to read when you are at a distance. If you are in the very front of the church trying to see the one in the back, or if you're in the very back trying to see the one in the front. Can you tell us a little bit more, Anne, about what is happening with AV proposal or AV improvement, or who can tell us a little bit more about AV?
Yeah, I would pass this to our, I mean, I can speak to it, but they can be more definitive.
And as Bill steps up to answer that question, does anybody else have questions on cards that you can hand off to me? Okay.
So our plan is to get rid of the screen that blocks the rose window and to put up screens that are above each door in front of the sanctuary. They will be projectors still, but it'll be laser projectors, so they'll be sharper than you can perceive. The back screen will still be a screen there, but it will be sharper. And yeah, all those screens can go up when they're not being used, as the one in front of the rose window does, but it makes a lot of noise when it goes up. We're going to improve the connections to all our cameras, so the live stream will be easier to control for us and provide capability for maybe improving some of the dramatic effects on the live streams. And we're always trying to improve the sound. The sound equipment is pretty good, so I don't think we're replacing the sound equipment. But we're always working on the microphones and trying to improve the clarity of the sound. Any questions? And there's going to be some monitors in the balcony as well. Yeah, there will be TV-type monitors mounted on either side so the balcony doesn't have to look all the way to the front of the sanctuary. Since the screens will be moved from the back of the narthex up to the wall over the doors, they're actually closer to the sanctuary. They will be slightly smaller, there'll be 2 of them, but since they're closer, they should be easier to read than the one that's back in the back. And we're not spending the whole $1 million.
All right, we are nearing the end of our meeting time, so I just want to once again invite you to be involved in some of the other ways. First, through prayer. We know that this is a hard time for everyone, and it is a very hard time for clergy. So please, if you are clergy, including our newest clergy member, are not part of your prayer rotation, please consider holding them in prayer as often as you can. Be present in all the ways. Be present by reaching out to others. Be present when you can in person. Be present when you can in our live streams and in the chat that are associated with that. Share what is happening in your faith life through emails and texts or phone calls or visits with others. And be part of the life of this church by volunteering in any ways that you can. If you need a suggestion, I would start with the crop walk. All right, Nancy has a couple more announcements, and then Geneva, I believe, will pray us out.
Yeah, I want to mention a few things. One is something that kind of didn't fall into any one person's purview to talk about, is that we've started a safety and security team. At this point, it's Rachel and 2 members of trustees, feeling that it's really, really important for us to have a plan, to really know how we're going to care for our kids in the case of an emergency, how we would clear out the sanctuary or not, help people to know how we can stay safe. We don't like to think about it. Church should inherently be safe, but that's just not the world we live in. So I want to give thanks to those folks. Rachel, do you need more people on that team at this point? Thanks, Rachel. 2 other opportunities coming up. One is I am going to be starting a year-round stewardship committee. I really think that stewardship is a year-round thing because it's not just the campaign, the financial campaign. So if that's something you're interested in working on, I would love your help. And more exciting than stewardship, we're coming up on our 200th birthday, and I am putting together a team of folks to plan this church's 200th anniversary bash. So if that is something you're interested in, please contact me, let me know. I want it to be a big blowout and a lot of fun and also very faithful and appreciative of those who have gone before us. That's everything I've got. You get to pray now.
What permission giving we have. As ever, thank you for your time. Thank you for this particular connection point. I know that sometimes all church meeting is a weird thing where you're like, oh, well, at least there'll be coffee. But it is so important for the church as an organization to talk to itself and say, hey, here's where we're going, here's where we've been, here's how we want to get there. And it is so good and important for the body to talk to itself in this way. So thank you as ever for showing up to these things. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for the ongoing conversations that are always part of how we do this extraordinarily weird thing called church. Join me in prayer. God of the minutiae and of the magnificent, we thank you for all of the ways in which you invite us to do church. We thank you for the committees, even if they're dull. We thank you for the dullness, even when it's weird. We thank you for the outreach. We thank you for the hearts of all who are involved, who recognize that just because it's not glamorous doesn't mean it's not holy. God, as we go into the rest of our days, we ask that you walk with us and remind us that church is all of the things that we do, that faith pervades all of the people, interactions that we have, that this way of being a Christian is an all-the-time thing. And we thank you for the reality, the hope, the reassurance that we do none of that alone, that in all things you walk beside us, you work within us, and you call us forward to the work of your ministry over and over again. In the name of Jesus the Christ we pray. Amen. Blessings on your day. You are free.